By the time the fire trucks came, my Tesla looked like a cursed prototype, half melted, half smoldering, and still occasionally popping as the battery pack went nuclear. I stood on the curb in bare feet and pajama pants, watching my car cook like a very expensive marshmallow, while my HOA president, Beverly Klein, screamed at the fire captain. She shrieked, jabbing a manicured finger at me. He asked for this. He supports that Elon Musk man. He's been tweeting about it. This is what happens when you let tech cults into Sycamore Crest. The fire captain stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Ma'am, we're just trying to keep your street from exploding. Police lights painted the neat row of beige McMansions in red and blue. A cop walked up to me, tight-lipped, holding an evidence bag. Inside it was my phone. He said, "Mr. Cole, we got a report you might have set your own car on fire for insurance fraud. And some screenshots of your Twitter. We're going to need a statement at the station." Behind him, Beverly folded her arms, smirking like she'd just won HOA of the year. She had no idea she'd just burned far more than my Tesla. My name is Evan Cole. 36, software engineer, socially allergic, owner of one very quiet, very non-threatening Tesla Model Y in Sycamore Crest, a subdivision that looks like it was generated by a Suburbia filter. I worked from home, kept my yard neat, played video games with noise-canceling headphones, and interacted with neighbors the same way I interacted with pop-up ads, briefly and with deep suspicion. Then there was Beverly Klein, HOA president, self-appointed guardian of property values, and the kind of woman who wrote emails with subject lines like RE:"URGENTISSUE-decorative gnome. She was in her late 50s, powered entirely by Chardonnay and unprocessed resentment. She wore a pastel power walk outfit and a permanent expression that said, "I've spoken to the manager and the manager lost." Our first real interaction came a few months after I moved in, when she knocked on my door holding a clipboard like a weapon. She said, eyes flicking past me into the house as if I might be smuggling in a trampoline, "Mr. Cole, we need to discuss your vehicle." I asked, "My car?" She said, pronouncing it like a disease, "The Tesla. Several of us are concerned. The board feels it attracts a certain demographic. Tech brothers. Crypto people." She lowered her voice. "Musk fans." I blinked. "It's a car." She snapped, "It's a statement. And then there's your online activity." That was the day I learned two things. Beverly had found my Twitter, and Beverly did not understand the concept of scrolling past something that annoys you. Once Beverly decided I was a threat to the neighborhood vibe, my life turned into a suburban Cold War. It started petty. I got a violation notice for parking an unauthorized vehicle in the driveway overnight. The unauthorized vehicle was my Tesla, parked in my driveway, on my own property. I emailed back, attaching a screenshot of the CC&Rs that said absolutely nothing about electric vehicles. She replied at 3:12 a.m. Per Section 4.3, vehicles that are distracting, unusual, or negatively impactful to community harmony may be subject to board review. Consider this your warning, Evan. Community harmony, in Beverly speak, meant things I like. Then came the trash can complaint. Someone had sent the HOA photos of my garbage bin being visible from the street for 18 minutes between the time the truck came and the time I rolled it back. I checked my camera footage. The someone had been Beverly, lurking behind a hedge like an over-caffeinated raccoon with a Canon Rebel. Next, she escalated to Twitter policing. I tweeted a joke one night. If Elon announces Tesla lawnmowers, I'm trading my HOA president for one. It got like 11 likes and one reply that just said, "OL." 3 days later, I got a certified letter from the HOA. "We've received complaints about your online harassment and defamation of board members. You will cease all social media posts that incite hostility towards Sycamore Crest leadership or face fines." I almost choked laughing. Beverly had printed my tweet and highlighted HOA president like it was a death threat. But the laughter stopped when the fines started. $50 for yard lighting inconsistent with community aesthetic. $75 for improperly positioned recycling bin. $100 for disrespectful interactions with HOA leadership. And she wasn't just ticketing me, she was trespassing to find excuses. My security cameras caught her walking up my driveway, squinting at my license plate, and taking photos of my windows to check for reflective glare. Neighbors started murmuring. At the mailbox cluster, people would glance at me, then quickly away, like I was under investigation for war crimes instead of owning an EV. My next-door neighbor Joel muttered one afternoon, "You really ticked off Beverly. She's telling people you're some kind of Musk cultist who wants to install a charging station on the common lawn." I said, "That's not a thing." He added, "She printed your tweets on paper and passed them around at the last board meeting. In those little plastic sleeves." That was when I realized something important. Beverly wasn't just annoyed by me. She had turned me into a project. The night of the fire started stupidly enough, with a tweet. Elon had posted something about HOAs being undemocratic micro-dictatorships. I quote-tweeted it with, "My HOA president is absolutely reading this through binoculars right now." Apparently, someone sent it to her. Probably one of her board minions with a Ring doorbell and too much time. At 1:03 a.m., my front camera caught Beverly marching up my driveway in an oversized hoodie and yoga pants, the universal camouflage of suburban crime. She glanced around, then disappeared off to the side, toward the Tesla. What she didn't know was that I'd recently installed a side camera with night vision, because people had been messing with mailboxes. The HOA, ironically, had encouraged it. I woke up at 1:17 a.m. to a thump and a weird flickering orange through my blinds. By 1:20, the Tesla was a campfire. Neighbors poured out of homes in various stages of panic and pajamas. Someone called 911. Someone else yelled that the Tesla was going to explode like a rocket. Beverly ran up and down the sidewalk screaming about battery bombs and Musk terrorism. When the police arrived, she was ready. She said breathlessly, gesturing at me, "Officer, he's been unstable online. He hates the HOA. He hates this neighborhood. You should see the things he posts. He probably set it on fire for insurance money or to make us look bad." She held up a folder. It contained printed screenshots of my tweets and a nicely formatted incident summary on HOA letterhead, dated 2 days prior. She'd been planning to use them, just not like this. To their credit, the cops didn't immediately buy it. But standard procedure is standard procedure. They confiscated my phone, took me in for questioning, and called my insurance company. Meanwhile, the fire marshal and arson investigator came out because of the EV fire. Apparently, car arson plus a lithium battery pack sets off all sorts of regulatory alarms. They examined the charred remains. They examined the driveway. They pulled camera footage from neighbors. And then they watched my side camera footage. Beverly, hoodie, walking straight to the Tesla. A small splash. A flicker. A bloom of light. Turned out she wasn't smart enough to realize Teslas have Sentry Mode cameras. The HOA's own safety initiative had pushed everyone to install more cameras. Every single one of those cameras was now a potential witness. By the time I got home from the police station at 6 a.m., exhausted and smelling faintly of burnt plastic, a detective was waiting in my driveway. He said, "Mr. Cole, looks like you're not our suspect." He glanced next door, where Beverly's house was. 2 patrol cars were parked out front. He added, "You might want to talk to a lawyer. Not about criminal stuff. About other opportunities." By the following week, the neighborhood grapevine was fermenting at industrial speed. People saw the cops lead Beverly out in handcuffs at 7:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. They saw the news van. They saw the arson investigator walking up and down the street with a clipboard. What they didn't see was me, sitting in a polished oak office, talking to attorney Malik Harrow, a civil litigator who looked at my folder of HOA notices and security footage like it was a Christmas stocking. He said, flipping through Beverly's violations, "So let me get this straight. She fined you repeatedly over bogus infractions, attempted to interfere with your insurance claim by accusing you of fraud, trespassed on your property multiple times, and then allegedly set your car on fire and tried to frame you using your tweets." I echoed, "Allegedly." He smiled slowly. "Evan, I would very much like to ruin this woman's week. Possibly her decade." The criminal case moved first. Beverly was charged with arson of property, filing a false police report, insurance fraud, and trespassing. Her lawyer tried to spin it as a misunderstanding and a panicked attempt to scare him into compliance that got out of hand. The prosecutor countered by playing the camera footage on a big screen and then, for good measure, projecting Beverly's own emails that had been seized with a warrant. "We need to make an example out of him," she had written to another board member. "If he wants to worship Elon Musk, he can do it somewhere that isn't dragging down Sycamore Crest property values." Meanwhile, Malik went to work on the civil side. He filed suit against Beverly and the HOA for harassment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, breach of fiduciary duty for the HOA board enabling her nonsense, and negligence for failing to rein her in. Discovery turned up a horror show of suburban tyranny. There were secret group chats where Beverly called me Musk Boy and discussed ways to make his life so miserable he moves. There were memos where she instructed the HOA's compliance volunteer to find anything that could be interpreted as a violation on my property. There was even a bizarre spreadsheet where she tracked my tweet timestamps against neighborhood disturbances, as if my liking a SpaceX meme caused someone's dog to bark. The board panicked. At an emergency community meeting in the clubhouse, the remaining members tried to distance themselves. One claimed, "We had no idea." Someone in the back called out, "Emails say you voted to approve most of these fines." Joel, my neighbor, stood up. "Yeah, and you all let her patrol the street like it was her private kingdom. This is on you." For the first time since I moved in, the room wasn't afraid of Beverly. They were afraid of being sued with her. The day of the civil trial felt like the series finale of a very petty TV show. Beverly sat at the defense table in a conservative blazer instead of her usual pastel tracksuit, her hair slightly flatter, her smile much tighter. The HOA's attorney, a weary man who looked like he regretted every life choice that led him here, shuffled papers like they might magically transform into winning arguments. Malik, my lawyer, started with the cameras. We watched Beverly approach my car. We watched her splash the accelerant. We watched her ignite it and run. Then we watched, side by side, the video of her telling the cops she suspected me of arson because of my concerning online presence. Malik clicked to the next slide, one of her emails. "If the board doesn't take action, I'll handle it myself. Someone has to protect Sycamore Crest from people like him. This is war for the soul of the neighborhood." The courtroom was silent except for the bailiff shifting in his chair. Next came the HOA dirty laundry. She had been waiving fines for friends while doubling down on others. She'd used HOA funds to print out community safety packets that were mostly screenshots of my Twitter. She'd authorized unsanctioned late-night observations of my property, which was a fancy way of saying she was creeping around with a flashlight. One board member under oath admitted, voice shaking, we were scared to oppose her. She threatened to start fining us, too. Then it was Beverly's turn. On the stand, she tried everything. "I thought the Tesla was a fire hazard. I was just checking on it for safety. I tripped, and the lighter fell." Malik didn't even look up. He asked, "So you tripped into dousing his car in gasoline? And the gas can also tripped into your trunk on the way over." He clicked to another slide, her text message from the night before. "He's mocking us on Twitter again. People like him don't learn unless it hurts their wallet." Malik said mildly, "Miss Klein, would you say setting fire to a $60,000 car qualifies as hurting his wallet?" Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly, like a koi fish. When closing arguments came, Malik framed it perfectly. This isn't just about an HOA president who went off the rails. This is what happens when someone gets a little bit of petty authority and starts believing the rules don't apply to them. Miss Klein thought her personal hatred of my client outweighed the law. She used the HOA as a weapon. Today, the law gets a turn. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. They found Beverly liable on every count. They awarded me full replacement value of the Tesla, damages for harassment and emotional distress, and punitive damages large enough to make the HOA's treasurer visibly sway in his chair. Sycamore Crest HOA, once boasting a robust reserve fund, was suddenly looking at liquidation to pay the judgment. Beverly stood there, face blank, as the judge added a cherry on top. She was barred from serving on any HOA board or similar governing body for a lengthy period as a condition negotiated in the settlement. The woman who lived to lord over other people's lawns was now legally banned from managing mailbox paint colors. Her criminal case ended with a felony arson conviction and a sentence that included prison time, probation, mandatory restitution payments to the HOA, which now mostly meant me, and a court order barring her from living in or managing any community with a mandatory association. Last I heard, she was renting a small apartment in a complex where the closest thing to an HOA was a laminated sign that said, "Please take your laundry out of the machines on time." According to public record, she also had to attend a multi-week conflict de-escalation and civic boundaries course, which I can only imagine was her personal purgatory. Beverly Klein, the woman who once held an entire neighborhood hostage over lawn gnomes and tweet timestamps, stood in the courtroom as the judge read her sentence, her face draining of color with each word, and when he finished, she simply closed her eyes and whispered something that no one could hear.